We're live. Friends, welcome to Be Waste Wise again today. Our first event today was with Waste Aid UK. Now this is our second event, I'm Ranjit Anipu. I'm a senior waste management consultant and co-founder of Be Waste Wise, your knowledge partner for the resource revolution. Welcome to Pioneers and Changemakers. This new initiative is a weekly series of 30-minute interviews, some of the best minds in circular economy, sanitation, wastes, and resource management. And today is our last interview of this series with Sarah Currie-Halpern. The reason we started this initiative is because there are a lot of problems in our world, but not enough leaders. So in this program, in addition to learning what people are doing worldwide, you'll also learn how they implement solutions, how they choose between solutions, and how they solve problems. And why they began their journey. So this program builds on our annual program called the Global Dialogue on Waste and our knowledge partnerships with the Asian Development Bank, the International Solid Waste Association, and Waste Aid UK. Now, these interviews are not just about listening to leaders, but it is also about learning to be a leader and becoming one. So it is for the pioneers and change makers in you. If you have any questions, use the live chat box below the video stream, and you can also use that chat box to put your comments. If you learned anything from this interview, please share it with your colleagues and friends so they can also get access to this gift of knowledge. And if you'd like to support us and keep us going, you can use the donate button on the website or go to wastewise.be/donate and make a one-time or monthly contribution. Now, with that, Sarah, welcome to Be Waste Wise. I'm sorry I made you close all the window shades because it was beautiful behind you.
That's okay.
All right, great. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do, both your lives and advocacy and your company?
Sure, absolutely. So, I got into recycling at the tender age of about 5 years old. I grew up in Connecticut and helped my mother when she was helping launch the recycling program in our town. So I like to say, and it's true, that I really developed this passion at a very young age. Fast forward, into my 20s, became aware of the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board, and became a member of Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board, and then slowly but surely moved my career over into a full-time career in waste. I did work for Mayor de Blasio in New York City for a couple of years, running zero waste and solid waste programs for the mayor's office, which was an incredible experience, and really learned the policy side of this whole world of waste, regulatory world, and really how change can happen, at the government level. So that was a very interesting experience. I then co-founded Think Zero LLC, and we are a waste diversion reduction and zero waste consultancy focused on helping primarily corporations, real estate owners, and developers reduce waste, divert waste, and become compliant with local waste regulations. And we do everything from, donation management. Let's say you're moving offices and you need to donate a whole lot of stuff, to the compliance piece, to waste planning, and really strategic zero waste planning as well. And we can help get certifications, your true certification now it's called, GRESB, and other things like that. So we're in, office spaces and buildings every single day, helping reduce and divert waste. I hope that.
No, that does. Thank you so much. Can you talk to us about your work at Manhattan Swab? I mean, that's where I met you. I've been, coming to multiple meetings, and that's where I first saw that, you were creating real change in the city. Yeah. So could you talk to us about, that part of the advocacy side, yeah, and what goes into making that kind of change? What kind of relationships do you need?
Sure. So just a little background. So in New York City, we do have, we're supposed to have several swabs. Each borough of New York City is supposed to have a swab. So I chair the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board, going on 2 years now. There is also a Brooklyn swab, and there's a Queens swab. And the idea is to have a swab in every borough. And the Manhattan swab, we're lucky enough to have a very strong swab. The Manhattan Borough President supports it and helps decide who will be members of the swab. And really, we bring together a group of concerned citizens, waste industry folks, corporate folks, press, anybody who's really concerned with waste in Manhattan, but really anywhere in New York City. And we have a number of different committees that are run out of the SWAB, and there's just incredible work happening in our committees. Everything from we're working with one committee is residential building managers, essentially working with residential building managers to help residential buildings reduce waste and recycle better. We're putting out a couple manuals that we're going to distribute to the building managers around the city. We have our reusable takeout container committee, which is really called Policy and Programs, but what they're primarily doing is reusable takeout containers, trying to create a systematic approach to getting reusable takeout containers used throughout New York City. And one of there's a lot of challenges there, and I can talk about a little bit more about that later, but working with restaurants really at the restaurant level to get them to make the switch to reusable takeout containers is one of the places we're focused. And then, of course, also helping find a third party who could be a center for washing reusable takeout containers and redistributing them out to the community. We are seeing this successfully go on in some other municipalities, such as San Francisco, the Raleigh-Durham area, there is one. So we're hoping to do that here, and I hope that the SWAB can be a big part of that. I'm also very proud of our 2 grant programs. We have a community composting grant program, and we have a reuse and repair grant program. Community composting is going on over a decade. So for over a decade, we've been putting money out into the community, which supports more composting. It's happening in community gardens, it's happening in schools, it's happening now. We even have our first commercial building who's applied for the grant, and they're going to do a compost facility on their roof, which all the tenants, the food scraps from the tenants every day will go up to the roof and be composted on the roof. I'm really proud of that program, and we continue to grow it every year. Reuse and repair is a new grant program that we just started, and that's putting money out into the community for reuse and repair projects that must be scalable. You must be able to grow them. We want to see them, not only impact New York City, but eventually be something that could grow and impact US or even further beyond. And that's anything from your typical, small groups that are repairing certain sets of items to groups that are making artwork out of, reused, recycled materials. The list goes on and on. We have student groups that are doing some great projects in reuse and repair. We're also looking to support researchers who are doing research on reuse and repair. Particularly, we're interested in discards at the curb level in New York City. How much of those discards are actually reusable and could be captured back and reused rather than sent to landfill and incineration? So there's a lot of different things we're interested in with this reuse and repair grant. I'm really excited about it. We're going into our 2nd year, and we do partner on these 2 grant programs with CCNYC. So a lot going on at the SWAB.
Great, wonderful. And could you talk about the policy work that you do at SWAB? That's been really interesting to me because of the amount of the patience it takes to work on that.
Yes. So we have a very strong legislative committee, and we're working with different members of City Council, including our new Speaker, Johnson, we're hoping to work with. And we are proactively reaching out to council members to meet with them and share our legislative agenda. So we do have a legislative agenda for 2018. We also had one 2017, excuse me. Every year we're putting together a legislative agenda. And yes, it's an interesting world in policy here in New York City because some of the regulations do, take a long time. Plastic bags being a great example. I started at the mayor's office back in early 2014, and they were already working on the plastic bag legislation. As we all know, that did unfortunately not make it at the city level, and it went up to the state level. We are hopeful now that at the state level there is new legislation, there's a new bill. We're hoping that bill will make it, because what I understand from plastic bag experts is that we do like this bill that's at the state level. Some of the money, I believe 80% of the money will go to the Environmental Defense Fund. So, and that's the revenue from a fee on some bags. And I know plastic bags would be banned under this bill. Paper bags, I believe there would be a fee, paper and reusable bags. So it's very good piece of legislation, and we are hopeful that that will pass forward. And so we're doing whatever we can to support that, attending rallies. We also testify at City Council about various things. Last year we testified on, there was a zero waste hearing. And there's a waste characterization hearing coming up that we'll be testifying at. So we're very active in, testifying, meeting with council members, etc.
Right. And what does it take to create this kind of change in policy? And do you have any tips for others doing this work around the world, or would want to do something like this around the world?
Sure. Yeah. Again, I think I'd say the same thing about advocacy work. Be proactive, get out there, show up face to face. I think it does matter when you show up. Building relationships, I think, is a huge piece of this puzzle. We've built I think, a good relationship with Councilmember Reynoso, who is the chair of the Sanitation Committee in New York City. And I think that's a big piece of the puzzle, building relationships, because let's be frank, the lobbyists on the opposite side are also building relationships, right? And they're out there working every day to get their point across, and that's the opposing point. So I think we have to be out there and very strong with our point, and use all channels we can to get our message out there when there is something we want to see happen, such as a ban or a fee on plastic bags, or a ban on styrofoam that we've also been working on for a long time. Don't be afraid to use social media, use blogs, use all your channels that you have to get the word out, because I do think once you have citizen support, you will go further, because I think our elected officials do pay attention when they see that there's sort of like a mounting, there's strength behind a campaign, and more people are pushing for it. I think they do. They're forced to listen then.
Right. Great. Glad that still works.
Yes.
So can you talk to us about the Think Zero LLC? What kind of work do you do, and who do you work with?
Sure. Yeah, I can mention a few of our specific clients. We are working with 565 Broome Street, which is a development here in Soho, and they are aiming to go zero waste within 2 years. That's a really good example. We do work with a number of other developers. We have a residential development project in Mamaroneck, New York, which is a community that is looking to be a socially and environmentally responsible community. And we do enjoy working with the real estate developments, especially when we can get it sort of ahead and work with developers from just when they're sort of planning the building, because we want to plan that waste, the waste systems into the design of the building. Time and time again, we see that building owners, unfortunately, think about waste late in the game, and then don't have the appropriate loading dock space, don't have the appropriate storage space to do some of the things they might want to do with zero waste or like a low waste strategy. And then we're having to backtrack and not be able to do everything they want to do. So we really love to get in the door early and be able to look at those drawings and plans and work in a good waste management plan. And then we can be much more strategic. You can think about things even like maybe pneumatic tube systems, or anaerobic digestion of food waste. You can just get much more creative and forward thinking when you start the planning early. And I just want to give a little credit to the to AIA in New York City, who put out the Zero Waste Building Guidelines, which are a fantastic tool, and I highly recommend to everybody that you check that out if you haven't already. And they do have a great calculator which can help consultants, architects, contractors really plan ahead for how much waste the building might have. So it can give you estimates based on your number of units, based on the number of people that will be in that building, what you need to plan for. And that's everything from bins to toters to compactors, chutes, everything. And it's a very helpful tool. So we do use that tool as well.
Great. We actually interviewed Claire Mifflin last month. So she spoke about the tool. So friends, if you'd like to learn more about the tool and hear more from Sarah, who's also a biomimicry specialist, search for her on the Be Waste Wise website. You should be able to find it really easily. So Sarah, there are a lot of reasons on why people like us are in the industry and then doing this work. But what are the incentives for your clients to work with you to reduce waste or to do whatever they're doing with you? What are your incentives?
Yeah. So I didn't get to mention our corporate clients. We also do work with your typical corporate clients. And for the corporate clients, most often it's compliance. I would say that's number one, compliance with the regulations. There's, obviously regulations all over the country, but here in New York City, we do have now strong commercial recycling laws, and we have commercial organics laws that are expanding as to the number of businesses that will impact. So these clients are looking ahead, corporate clients are looking ahead and seeing that they're presuming that they are going to have to divert organics at some point. So they want to start the planning for that. I think that so compliance is one of the biggest. And then I would say number two is really shareholders driving it, shareholders and stakeholders. So let's talk about shareholders first. A lot of bigger corporations, especially publicly traded corporations, in their annual reports now have either a sustainability section or they have a whole sustainability plan, and they have targets in there that they need to reach. So, oftentimes they'll also be interested in working with us to help them reach the waste targets that they have set. And that could be anything from a specific zero waste target, a diversion target, a percentage waste reduction target, whatever that might be. So do you have an organics diversion program or composting program? What is your recycling program? What are you doing to reduce waste? Or what are you doing to be better about the environment? Asking about renewable energy and things like that. So, and of course, these companies want talent. And so if the talent is asking for it, they need to make sure that they have it. So I would say from the corporate sector clients, that's what drives it. And then from the real estate clients, it's a little bit different. I would say it's compliance, and then it's also, especially for the sort of the A-class building owners and larger portfolios, it's achieving LEED certification, achieving their GRESB points that they want to achieve. And so it's really, they want to have those certifications so that they can remain competitive. So I would say compliance and then the certifications, and then after that also shareholders if they are like a REIT or publicly traded, and then the stakeholders as well. So tenants are driving it. Tenants are saying, I think if tenants have 5 buildings in front of them and 2 of them are sustainable or have like a zero waste program, they're going to be much more attracted to the buildings with the sustainability or zero waste program, especially if they're like when I say higher level tenant, if they're like a, Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 company, they're going to be attracted to that more sustainable building.
Right. And I guess being zero waste also kind of works into having more of a community engagement, and then kind of also more other issues where they feel safer and more engaged in the
yes, the community engagement. I know you and I spoke about the other day, and that's absolutely right. I forgot about that point as well. In New York City, and I know some other cities still, you have your black bags at the curb, and companies really want to start avoiding that, big pile of black bags at the curb. So thinking about how they can not only reduce waste, but also containerize that waste and things like that. And then also just, really helping the neighborhood that they're in. From a waste perspective. And again, if you're reducing waste and you're being more sustainable, you're also helping your community and your neighborhood that you're in.
Right. I know some of you are joining in from New York, but for those who haven't been in New York, something that I observed as soon as I moved here was that there are these, on the trash collection day, when you're walking on the street, you'll see cars parked on the curbside. And then right next to them, you'll see these huge piles of black bags, and then they are bigger than the cars, or sometimes they're as big as 2 cars or 3 cars. So it's a sight that I can never forget. That view of New York City. So Sarah, I know you wanted to talk about the impact of improper management of our wastes on public health. And public health is one of the reasons that I'm in the waste management sector. But before you talk about that, could you talk to us about how you deal with both your advocacy life and also the business? What's a day in your life? How does it look like?
Sure. Every day is a little bit different. I have some days where I'm lucky enough to be touring a MRF, a material recovery facility or recycling facility. Those are really fun days where, half the day we go out and tour a facility or maybe a compost facility. Let's say in the afternoon, we have some client meetings and we're, up in the offices of a big real estate company, or we do have a client who has studios and, has talent, and it's in a media business. So we could be in, a studio setting, looking at the recycling bins. back in the office. And then if it's a day like today, we have our Manhattan SWAB meeting. Actually, tonight, I'll give a little plug for the SWAB. Tonight at 1 Bryant Park, 6 p.m. It's open to all. So, you know, tonight I'll be chairing our 2-hour meeting, and then afterwards we'll have networking. We're actually having green drinks tonight for Earth Month, where everyone's welcome to join at O'Looney's, which is on 45th Street, and we'll have, you know, waste folks get together to network at that at about 8:15 tonight. So that's one day, but you know, every day is a little bit different. Yeah, which is great, which is what I love about this business.
Great. I didn't know about that, but I was out of my made plans. But so we have so friends, if you have any questions or comments, use the live chat box. It's right below the video stream. So go there and enter your questions or comments. We have a quick question from Martin. He asks if, I know you work on a decentralized waste management and zero waste. So he's asking, you know, what kind of benefits do you see? Is there something that, you know, it's not generally covered in, you know, in the public? Can you talk about any insights that you have that is generally not talked about?
Absolutely. So I don't think it's talked about enough that there are potentially large cost-saving benefits from zero waste. So I can give you a couple examples. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but we ran a scenario for a private school, for example, that we work with on switching to hand dryers versus paper towels. And I think it would save them something like 16 to, I'm sorry, that was a different number. No, that's the switching to reusables in the cafeteria. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but let me just tell you, it was a very decent chunk of money you could save every month by switching over to hand dryers from paper towels. And of course, the sustainability aspect of that. You know, I think there used to be a little bit of a debate about paper towels versus hand dryers, but I think that debate is now over. Definitely from a cost savings perspective and an environmental perspective, it is better to switch to hand dryers. So, you know, there's cost savings across the board. I mean, also your waste hauler. If you're able to reduce waste for a client or for yourself, for your own business, your waste hauler should be giving you a discount on your monthly fees. If you now have more waste, less waste, excuse me. That's a great example. Another example would be in a cafeteria setting, which I was just thinking about, switching to reusable, switching to durable plates, forks, knives, spoons, even napkins, will be a huge cost savings over time. If you're looking at the corporate setting, you know, we see corporations that are buying plastic water bottles every day for their employees, switching to just putting a great, you know, water filter, you know, on your taps and having people use that as an obvious huge cost saving measure. Another example is switching over to requiring everybody to use screens in the conference rooms. You know, I haven't seen a company yet where they say absolutely no more printing. I think we're going to get there to a day when some companies will say absolutely no more printing, but printing is a huge expense for businesses. So switching over to asking more of your employees when you're sitting in a conference room, please use the conference screen, show your documents on the screen, don't print your documents, is a huge cost saving measure. So yes, I think one of the biggest benefits is actually the cost savings, and there's not enough information out there about that.
Right. I love the you know, the stream of tips that you were giving. Maybe we should do another video on just that, which would be really useful, I guess. But before that, I know we've talked about this quite a bit, and we asked this question to everyone on the Pioneers and Changemakers. You know, you know, sometimes change just seems like, you know, so difficult, so huge, and it could be really overwhelming. So tell us about what you think about the pace of change since you know, got into the waste management industry, what you've seen, how it changed. And then could you talk about the impacts, the public health impacts on improper? Could you talk about both of them together? We have less than 6 minutes. So if you can finish that quickly, then we can get to another question. Otherwise, we'll end it there.
Okay, got it. So very quickly, you know, I'm a businesswoman. I'm impatient naturally, but yes, I'm definitely impatient with the pace of change. I'm impatient both at the government regulatory level and also just with general people, the general public. So let's deal with the regulatory level first. You know, I think that regulation, whether we like it or not, is going to drive a lot of change. We saw that with solar arrays, and we saw that with renewable energy. The best way to make change happen and make more people switch over to renewable energy is regulation. It's the same thing with waste. You know, so I think we need more, you know, we need more cities to be, banning plastic bags, banning styrofoam, and then also hopefully banning single-use items eventually. And there's so many other examples of this, but I think the pace of that change just needs to speed up. We'd love to see I'd love to see the federal government, doing that. And obviously with this president, we're not going to see that. Maybe the next president. Now, at the general public level, I am also impatient with the level of change that's happening in the general public. People not switching over fast enough to reusable mugs, reusable water bottles, things like that. We are seeing slow changes, but I would love to quicken that change. So, I do wonder how we can make that happen. I think the tie-in is, as I mentioned to you before, is the impacts we're starting to see on our food supply. And I think as more people start to understand that there are impacts on our food supply, and we're starting to see research and data that shows that, more people, I think, will stop and think about their behaviors, reduce their waste, switch to reusables. I'll give you an example, or I'll give you what I'm talking about with the food supply connection. So I'm sure people have seen it in the news. Are the gyres, the garbage patches are growing in the ocean, as we know. You're finding that fish, their stomachs full of plastics. We are eating these fish. We are eating the sea life, and we are presumably, I can't say for sure, I'm not a scientist or researcher, but there's got to be a link between, the plastics that are in those fish and the fact that we're eating those fish. There's also been some research done around soils and increasing amounts of levels of plastics and other toxins in soils because of, human behavior. And so, it's in the soil. That's where our vegetables and foods are grown. So I don't think it's conclusive yet, but I think we're going to be seeing a lot more about the impacts of waste and our behaviors on our food supply. And I do hope that will start to drive more change in the general public and maybe regulatory change as well.
Great, wonderful. It's really good to be impatient and then try to move for more change, push for more change. I think that this is something that I have to mention. I've come across many people who talk about diapers, but I don't come across many people who actually use reusable diapers. The first person was my friend from Colombia, Divya. She used reusable diapers, and she had really nice things to say about it, on how easy it was, and that she had some trouble initially, but then afterwards, it got really easy to use them, and then she also felt very good about saving all that from the landfill. Did you have similar experiences? I know you use reusable diapers.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of reusable diapers, of cloth diapers. I have two little ones, and they were both cloth diapered. I actually met my business partner through cloth diapers because she was a cloth diapering mom in my neighborhood, and we connected that way. And yes, I found them. I think once you have a system in place, for any parents who are listening in or who see this, I think that it's so important to have a system, and I highly recommend that you get a sprayer on your toilet, not to get down into like the specifics, but really I think that's so important that you have that. And once you have that, and if you're able to have your own washer and dryer or use a washer and dryer in the neighborhood, you really can do it pretty easily. And I have to tell you, I've run the numbers, and I have an article I'm going to be putting out soon about this. You can save a lot of money by cloth diapering, particularly if you're able to buy your cloth diapers secondhand. If not, even with new cloth diapers, you can really save a lot of money. It's amazing how much money people spend on disposable diapers every month and through the course of a child's diaper life. So I'm a big proponent of making people switch, and I'm not making people, encouraging people to switch. And I think that there's a couple of concerns people generally have, and those are it's inconvenient, it's gross, my child goes to daycare. Cloth diapering is for hippies or tree huggers, and or we don't have our own washer and dryer. And so I'll be putting out an article soon, look out for it, about dispelling those myths and why you can make cloth diapering work in your life and with your children.
Right, great. Thank you so much, Sarah. We have just 1 minute. It's really crazy how time flies when you're talking about trash.
I know, right? Seriously.
30 minutes, and then it feels like nothing. Yeah, so friends, that's Sarah. We might have just maybe some time to get a final comment from her, but I just wanted to say that this is the last event for our pioneers and changemakers. We've interviewed many other pioneers, and then please go through the website, search for them, and then you'll find a lot of good knowledge out there. And I'm also very happy to say that Be Wastewise is the largest repository of video knowledge in the waste management and circular economy sector. So there is a lot of knowledge back from 2013, since 2013, that you can search and learn from. And all of our work builds on the partnerships that we have, and then the programs that we create. And we're doing all of this to create a global audience for global community for waste management. And once we have a global community, we will have the scale to make our ideas and programs more easily implementable. So that's the idea, and timeline, we're looking at 15 to 20 years. Having a nonprofit work for 15 to 20 years, that is quite a challenge, but we're happy to take on that. And so if you liked what you heard, share it with your colleagues and friends so that you can provide them that gift of knowledge, them the gift of knowledge too. And yeah, with that, thank you again for joining. Sarah, do you have any final comments that you would like people to know? Where can they follow you? How can they follow ThinkZero?
Yeah. Look at my website, ThinkZeroLLC.com. You can also find me on Facebook or Twitter and LinkedIn. And I look forward to, if you are in New York City, please visit us at the Manhattan Swab meetings. It's the second Wednesday of every month, 6 p.m. at 1 Bryant Park. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, wonderful. Thanks, Sarah. Thank you very much.